Hi, everyone. Welcome back to our final episode of the season, episode 18, I believe, 18 or 19. I got to count, of Stage Storm Medium. Before I welcome our final guest, and I just, from the bottom of my heart, want to thank you so much for your love and support as I launched this podcast. Please help me in welcoming the incredible Eva Noblezada to our podcast today. Hi, Eva. How are you?
Hi, I'm wonderful. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm so
Good.
happy you're here. I'm
Me too.
so
I've been
excited.
looking forward to this.
I have too. I've read Eva already. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, but we've got some good topics to dive into today. Before we get into the heavy stuff, can I ask, like, I know your story. I know you know this incredible story of being spotted at the Jimmy Awards and then literally being pulled out of this group to go, start the cast of Miss Saigon over in London. So can I ask though, right before the Jimmy Awards, this part always fascinates me. Like I call it like the Eva Noblezada lost years because or maybe I just haven't followed. What was that like leading up to that? Like, were you always into the arts? Like, when did that start?
I was always into my own definition of the arts as I knew it, growing up, because I didn't realize how extensive of a definition the arts was. Growing up, I just thought it was just a magical world. Literally, like I remember trying to go back into my 5-year-old brain. That's just like, I looked at anything like a playground, and all of a sudden it was my pirate ship. Where, I was the one woman show, just doing everything, and it made the days feel so long and so wonderful having that kind of creative mind. So I've always loved telling stories, and I've always loved connecting with people and singing and performing. So I'm very grateful that my calling is kind of parallels my purpose, one of my purposes on this earth. So I guess you could say I've always been in the arts. I've always wanted to be. So that's nice that I am.
When you were in high school, it's interesting. I mean, me myself as a high school teacher, as a theater director of high school students, there are times where I recognize talent early on, and I will try to, I'll say, look, you pursue whatever you want to pursue in college or onward, but I really think you would have a great career within the arts. And it's funny because sometimes when I tell those students that they're like, wait, me, like I just do this for fun, and I don't think they're aware of the magnitude of their talent and their ability. And can I ask, like, did a high school director make you aware of that? Or were you kind of always aware, hey, I have this ability and I should be doing more with this?
I was always very aware, and I'm grateful to have had but also when I was young and extremely more impressionable than I am now, parents that were so supportive of me kind of doing whatever, but mainly the arts. I mean, my dad for a few years swayed me to do like BMX or paintball or basketball, but I was like, I want to sing and dance. So it was the beauty of this, like the utter support, and also the constant repetition of the phrase, like, you are so gifted and blessed, which made me think, like, I'm sure it doesn't just stop there. Like, I have to do something with it to grow and to evolve. And it really led my hunger and my work ethic to like wanting to be great in what I did and my craft. But I was lucky, also very fortunate, to go to a performing arts middle and high school. So I was a part of that, like, just artistic world where there were so many kids like me who didn't come from a lot of money at all. It was like very little, but we were all there together. Just, I said Northwest School of the Arts had a $20 budget for the year. It did feel like that looking back, like, but the amount of talent was just unsurpassable. It was just incredible. And we all kind of knew that we weren't like the fancy performing arts school, but that didn't stop us from being excellent. So, and we had great teachers, wonderful places to perform, even though they weren't like state of the art like they are now. Back in the day, it was just a janky black box, but we made that black box into whatever we wanted it to be. And it was really magical. I'm very grateful to have had that time to just kind of like spread my wings a little bit.
Sure. Which is, I guess, oops, there we go. Sorry about that. Which is, I'm excited to pick your brain on the black box in just a little bit, because I know at our school, we're a public school. Our budget is really whatever we make from patron sales, from programs and things like that. And we would not be a school like you'd mentioned that has this huge budget, but I think there's a magic to be found when the budget isn't there, because the students we all have to get creative in the way we
Yeah.
do our storytelling. And So I guess let's go to that moment really quick before we start to dive in. You're at the Jimmy Awards. What's going through your head at that point? And then, because like, and then from there, was it like the treadmill belt just never stopped moving at that point? Like, I mean, just like boom, 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 in terms of how everything just manifested for you, I should say.
It honestly, after my first audition, I didn't hear anything for like months for Miss Saigon. That was pretty quick. It was like the Jimmys and then getting the audition and going to audition and doing it and then being like, oh, now it's like, what's going on? Like now it's like really stagnant. Like I don't understand. And then the second it picked up again, it picked up again. And
Yeah.
from the second audition to finding out I got the role, and then from like the weird last month or two at my high school where I knew I wasn't going to go do college tours, and to moving to London and then starting it all, it did not stop. It literally hasn't stopped since March 2020, since unemployment. I've been nonstop working since then.
That's what I was going to say. Like, I mean, that's crazy to think. And then, so that's the other thing. When you went down there, I mean, did your family move with you? Was it you and like a parent? Like, how did that work to
Yeah,
London?
my mom, bless my parents, they're incredible. My mom wanted to move me in and be with me in London for the first 6 months. And it was funny because I was actually in Les Mis as ensemble, like third quarter to the left, for 2 months before I did Miss Saigon, just so I can get used to like 8 shows a week in my body and
Sure.
what, being in professional show business was like. And I remember coming back from rehearsal like a week or two later, and she was like crying and she was like, and I was like, what's wrong? And she was like, you don't need me anymore. And I was like, that's okay. Here, let me help you pack. Because so it was nice. It was nice that she came with me, kind of like helped me settle in a little bit, but really gave me the space to just kind of figure it out, which
Yeah.
I learn best in those situations where I just get pushed and it's like, figure it out. So essentially after those 2 weeks of her being there, I was solo.
Wow. Moms are the best, both
They are
moms
the
and dads. And
best.
I'm very fortunate to have these beautifully supportive parents as well. And like I call my mom my momager with the podcast, and she's just so sweet. And she calls me every week, and Monday night at like after the episode aired, she goes, and I thought last week was my favorite. She's like, but I like this one even more. And she's so loving. And then she fangirls and she starts following all of you. So don't be surprised if I don't even know what her handle is, but she will start following you in a couple of weeks. So be ready.
Can't wait.
All right. So I guess to go into our first prompt, I mean, now that we kind of talked about it, for me, sometimes I'm asked all the time as a medium, how do you deal with throwing yourself into something that's so emotional every day?
Yeah.
Because it is a weird topic, to talk about. And I don't think of it this way. I mean, I think of it just we transition to our next life. But for many, they're like, well, how can you deal with this topic of death all day and it not get heavy? And I have my ways of separating that I'll talk about in a little bit. But one of the other questions that came up from some fans was, at 17, like, how did you access all of that emotion for that production of Miss Saigon? And then I guess, how did you shed it? Like, how did you know when to turn it off? Because I would imagine things are flying at you so fast at 17, stardom. And, I would love to pick your brain on this.
Yeah, my dad, since I was little, has always been saying like, be a sponge, like never be afraid to ask. There are no such thing as stupid questions. And I really I'm really huge with imagery and visuals. So in my brain, also in real life, but you know what I mean?
Sure.
And he would always say, be a sponge. And I just really went with that as hard as I could. I am an extremely big emotional firework, yet watery depth. I'm kind of the extreme of many things, and I learn best like that. And so it was difficult, I'm not gonna lie. It was extremely traumatic. The things that happened the first months of me living there, I'm still dealing with the backlash, and not backlash, but the effects of the stuff that happened when I first moved there. But it was a huge learning experience, not just in how I conduct myself as a leading lady on stage and what professionalism really means, and making sure my voice is ready, making sure my body feels ready, making sure my brain when I'm working feels ready. But I completely neglected my emotional and mental and psychological growth, and also spiritual growth. I kind of like put Eva to the side and thought that my new identity was Kim and Miss Saigon. And so it was just a weird, like, for years, I was under complete spiritual warfare of who I knew I was, like the tiny seed in my gut that was like, you've harvested everything. And so it's just us. Okay. I'm a little tiny sprout, and I need your help. We need to be this, you need to cultivate and start growing again. For years, I was like that. And I wondered why work was so hard. I was like, why am I crying all the time and like not getting enough sleep? And why am I like, being horrible to my body? And why is my eating disorder like eating me up? And why am I depressed? Why am I having thoughts of not being here anymore? And it was because I made my identity my career.
Mhm.
And at such a young age, I was like, I see. The whole idea of being a sponge is to, one, set boundaries, and also to learn from those experiences and know I am human first. And so I want to put things in my body and be a part of things that are having to do with the vocabulary of growth and really just growth, and like something that's alive, like my body and my friends and my purpose and my passions and inspirations, rather than a role and a show that's not living. That's just a thing to pass the time and to pay my bills. So it was something that I don't recommend. Literally, I say this to everybody. I do not recommend anybody to move to a new country by themselves and start this massive job at that age. It's not, I would not recommend that way of learning to anyone, because I handled that and survived that because of my family, my guardian angels, and the people around me, that small group who were older and who were like, we're looking out for you because you're a hot mess.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it was not easy.
Well, I mean, I guess to begin with, I mean, I think what you said, though, I feel like so many high schoolers, I mean, because remember, you're, like you said, you're coming out of high school. So many
Yeah.
of them, I mean, fall prey to this idea of my identity is that of the characters. I mean, when I was in high school, I mean, there's such a temptation to be like, oh, in order to embody this character, I have to wear it 24/7. And but it's funny. I mean, the same truly goes with mediumship. I mean, for me, when I first started, I was like, especially like really having success with like getting like names and like full names, and you leave there going like, oh my gosh, this is incredible, I want to do this 24/7. Or you're trying to let the meter run then when you're in the grocery store. And like I remember doing it. I remember being in, oh gosh, I was in the hospital visiting my grandmother who was sick at the time. And I remember I was like, oh, the meter's on. I'm just going to use it. And I tried to share it with the nurse. And this was when I first started developing my ability. And the nurse was not having it. She was like, I'm, and that was my fault. I should have, and I didn't know at the time, you're really supposed to go, I have a message. I'm a medium. Do you mind if I share this with you? It's peaceful. It's loving. And I didn't do that. I was like, oh, I've got to keep this battery running and just share it. So for me, that was like okay, like lesson learned. Like, so now it's interesting. Like now so I do readings Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. And then I take days off because otherwise it's too much. And then on my days off, I don't talk about it anymore. It's like, I was listening to a podcast with Tyler Henry, the Hollywood medium, and he was talking about, it's there, you hear the static and you just kind of go, okay, it's background noise. And we can absolutely turn it off. So I always say, if you ever have a medium that's like, oh, it's on all the time, it's a crock of shit. I think they say it for publicity purposes, but it doesn't work that way. So when you were talking about the idea of, I guess when your coworkers lovingly called you a hot mess, from 17 to now, were there aspects of your career, like I guess you touched on a little bit, was there anything else that you're like, I have to rewire myself because like,
Oh my God.
you know what I mean? Like,
I know exactly what you mean.
I just, was it like, I guess what you like in terms of like your like the profession itself, in terms of like accessing emotion, do you still access it the same way you did at 17, or did you have to rewire that as well?
I had to rewire some things, but I always picture this infinite bucket of cosmic feeling, and it's like in my solar plexus, and because I know that it's infinite, I can dip into it as much as I want. I will say the technique comes in where you go, Eva is not on stage. The character is on stage. So when you see my physical vessel, perhaps on stage crying and being thrown around, and you ask, Eva, how do you do that? Well, I'm not doing it. My character is. When I'm on stage and I'm in it, I open my eyes and I'm the character. I don't feel Eva's body. I don't feel Eva's thoughts. I feel what the character's feeling. And that's less emotion, more technique. So it allows me then to turn it off and turn it on. So the second I'm off stage, I'm making like a fart joke with my friend. And the second I'm on stage, she's back in the same, then the stakes are even higher. So that to me is what I wasn't, because I am emotional and I kind of love living in that. It is a superpower to me, like in that extremely emotional, empathetic world. But I didn't know how to turn it off. So I would be going home with like the energy of Kim's story. And it would be in the worst way. It's kind of like you get a nice painting and then all of a sudden you just like douse it with black paint. It's like, that's what I felt every night, like the heaviness and darkness from Miss Saigon. And it was overshadowing all the things that I needed as Eva, which meant that everything got shut down. My ability to do my job well, my mental health, my physical health, it all started declining because I just was wiring myself to give so much to the wrong thing. So, I mean, and there's still times when I'm like, I'm like, ooh, I gotta rewire. Like, even though I'm doing this thing, which you probably love, where if the second I start to feel like I'm getting in a funk, I immediately imagine my wings spread and I'm like, nope, time to raise my vibration. Because I picture my own, I talk about this in my meditations for the Amarillo project, but this idea of like, how would your physical body, hence your mental state, change the second you feel you have these massive angel wings attached to your back? And I'm like, I start to raise my vibe.
Okay, so if I was staring at you just like this the entire time, it's because I literally say the exact same thing. So first off, my solar plexus area is one that I always have to work on the most with meditation. I have my citrine out. Sometimes I'll use, I just got one. It's beautiful. I got my new one.
Oh wait, no, it's in there.
And I can't even run to, because this is how low the pandemic has gotten. Like I have just shorts. Like I look like, it's really bad. So I can't even run to go get it right now because this is, anyway. Solar plexus is one that I have to work on the most because I judge myself harshly all the time. If somebody has a 9 out of a 10 on a reading, I know they don't rate me like that, but if I feel I gave a 9 out of a 10, I'm like, oh, I missed this. Or, just recently, and I'm getting better about it, but recently I read somebody and I had everything down for this person. And they were like, well, they didn't say this word. And for a second, I started to beat myself up and I'm like, you know what? No. And I was like, that's not how it works. I told them, I was like, I listen in, like you said, like your dad, I'm a sponge. I soak it all up. I process it. I spit it back out, and that's how it works. It doesn't work that way when somebody goes, well, can you give a specific word? Every so often it does happen, but not like recently. It was nuts. I was reading somebody and I could tell that she didn't do anything visually to tip me off, but it was crazy. I dismissed the one soul and I was like, oh, and all of a sudden my legs from my knees down started to shake and they just flung out like this. And I'm like, did you just ask another person to come in right now? And she was like, yes. I go, right when my knee did that? And she was like, yes. And I go, did they not have mobility below the knee? And they're like, they were quadriplegic. And I'm like, oh, there we go. So I'm
let's
like,
give me goosebumps.
I did too right on the spot.
Wow.
So I'm like, all right, that's my sign then, that like, and it does happen sometimes where it's that immediate. But oh goodness, so yeah, with the solar plexus, yeah, I absolutely have to work on that too for myself. And just, I've rewired myself from the way that I was working almost 10 years ago, and there are moments where based on whatever's going on in my personal life or, my work life or things that used to be so easy suddenly seem so hard to do as a medium. Yeah. And then I have to go, oh my God, it's like you're overthinking it. And so I do the exact same thing. I visualize either wings, or I did this one meditation one time that opened my eyes to it. It was talking about white light, surrounding us. And then it was like, okay, now that you have this image in your head, how far out does the white light go? And in my mind, I was like, how about here? It's about a foot out. And it's like, okay, now put that light 6 feet out. And that's really what we're doing in
Wow,
actuality. And to
that's
just,
nice.
yeah, so to just rewire my brain to go like, oh, this is the amount of light that we all give off every day. And I just have to remind myself of it. And then I'm good to go. And
Yeah.
so you're magical. Um, so to
It's
talk,
nice to have somebody understand, because not a lot of people that even, my friends who are beautifully weird and incredible and just awesome. It sometimes I do speak sometimes in like, I do feel like I'm half alien sometimes in the way that I see and experience life. So it's nice to have somebody who genuinely is like, oh yeah, that's normal. That's how I feel.
it is for me, it's my normal. I got you there.
Yeah.
And no, so I'd also love to talk with you about, because this was another question that came up, was balancing mental health. So I know we've spoken about it a little bit, but for you, when you're doing a show, when you're, I mean, and here's the other thing, you talked about how to be a leading lady with grace and
Mm.
how do you balance the mental health aspect with, like, what do you do to help combat? And because I guess for me, I should say, like, I can't bring it into a reading with me. Like, I really have to shut it off or just go,
Yeah.
I'm acknowledging it, but I'm keeping it at bay. So what do you do?
I mean, I will say that there have been many times where I have just an attack of just like not being able to breathe. And thankfully, thank God for this, the Hadestown stage managers, and in particular Cherie. Just have to say her name just in case she feels like a warm hug behind her. I'm giving her that right now because she knows, like, she's just so lovely and understanding of people who suffer with anxiety and depression. And there's been a few times in Hades where I know it's there. It's an overwhelm. It's kind of like you're looking into a beautiful like English garden and there's butterflies and it's all light and you feel just cold down the back of your back, and it's like the second you turn around, we're on you. That's how it felt a lot of the time in Hadestown and also Miss Saigon, but most recently Hadestown. And the second I knew I was going off stage, I would hold it, stay in that world, and then it'd be like sucked out into whatever was waiting to consume me. And thankfully, Cherie would be there with like ice packs. I would put one on my head and one on my chest and my back. So she always had those. If I started shaking, sometimes I couldn't breathe. She would know what to say. You're fine. Keep breathing. Put your legs between your head. I have these ice packs for you. Do you want a heat pack? Do you want a cookie? So, and also just in those times, it's not once it is for everybody, but I had Eurydice and I had the story that supported me when I was weak. When I was vulnerable, I had this story to connect myself to. And thankfully, I love Hades and I love the story and I love doing it. It makes me feel powerful. So I'm very lucky because not a lot of people feel like that. And even when Eva was feeling weak and I was like, oh God, I can't do anymore. The second I was back on stage, it was like I was back without even maybe a few tears still, coming out of my eye. But I was back in the story and it was a very healing experience. I do say I probably missed that in the paycheck the most.
Well, I
Yeah.
remember after I read you, I fell down the rabbit hole and I started watching the blog. And can I ask, is that what one of the blogs for Hadestown? And I'm probably misquoting it, but I remember you were crying backstage and your camera
Oh
was
yeah.
on, and you're like, "Shit is real," or you were saying like, "Is that kind
Yeah.
of what you're talking about? What you just mentioned?"
Yeah. There was one in particular that I remember where um and this is only really started to happen in the last year. I remember my wonderful, beautiful boyfriend. We were doing a road trip, and I had alcohol poisoning, and I was throwing up in the car. It was a really big disaster, but I was so anxious about like what my body was doing. I was like, I'm under attack. I was like, I really felt possessed. We pulled over, and I was like, I can't move my hand. I couldn't move my hand, and I was freaking out that I had lost. I just got so freaked out. And the only other time I experienced that was in Hadestown, where I'm doing the scene. I know I'm about to go down on the lift, and my whole body starts. And I couldn't move my hands, so I tried to hide them at my side and make it feel like a stance. But I was shaking, and I remember seeing the people in the cast like look at me and look away because they were like, "Oh God!" Like, they knew that
Yeah.
I'd be okay, but I knew that Cherie would be waiting. So I'm going down, and I just like I was like, I can't move. So she had to go on the lifts and bring me out, and they had to pull the thing up. And I just remember being like, wow, I genuinely, and I was embarrassed. I was like, this is so embarrassing because everyone else is so professional that they never do this on stage. Um, but then that's why I thought it was so important to share, because the more normal people can start seeing performers and just people, then we stop putting people on pedestals and expecting, we start to really eradicate that idea of perfection, which I just fucking hate.
Yes.
And that's why it's like, I don't have time. It's honestly a waste of my energy to be anything but myself, anyone but myself. And so that's why I thought it was important, because I was like, for all of you kids, students who are excited to be a part of musical theater, be passionate, be excited, but also be intelligent and understand that this is still your life. And sometimes, a lot of the times, life's gonna bite you in the ass. And if you're ready for it, it's gonna hurt like it does now.
Yeah.
So it's just important to be it's nice to feel seen when you're like, oh, I'm like that. Nice to know she is too.
And that's why
Yeah.
with this podcast, I mean, that's why I love to break down the wall of the fact that I always start off too with a reading. I go, I'm not a mind reader. I will be, there's a chance I could be off on a name, or I might not pick up on this person right away, because it humanizes the experience. And I never want somebody who comes to see me thinking that they're seeing someone who is supernatural or other, like, I'm human. And I like to describe it as, remember when you're in art class and they put the leaf down and then put tinfoil over the leaf, or a penny, and then they put the tinfoil, and you start to sketch it, and you're like, oh, like I'm starting to see like the little bits and pieces of the leaf coming out. That's how it works for me. So I always say, sometimes I might not have the full image sketched out yet. I might have a name, or if I'm at this corner of it, I'm like, oh, I got the cause of death. So I'm always like, you have to be patient, and if I get something wrong, I hate when you have mediums that just are afraid to be wrong, and they're like, oh yeah, that's what I meant. That's what I was going to say. Like, bullshit.
Oh,
Don't lie. I mean, I think, to me, I would rather get 9 out of 10 things right and be human and own that time that I don't get it right than go, oh, you misunderstood me. I actually was saying, like, don't do that. That's why I'm like, humanize the process. And, goodness, I mean, when you were talking about Hadestown with mental health, I mean, are there things that you do in your downtime? Like I saw now that I can follow you again, because I had to unfollow you before. I saw that you do pole dance. I mean, what are some other things that you do to combat and to kind of keep mental health things in check for you, and I guess overall wellness?
Yeah, I know this might sound very cheesy, but I want to make sure that the things and energies in my environment always make me feel good and feel happy. Like, even the things I put in my body. I will say, everyone, if those who know me, I love drinking. I do. I love it. I know how, because sometimes people are like, well, alcohol. I have so many people say that to me. They're like, you do drink, and I'm like, so everyone, everyone has that thing. But I want to be around people and things that make me feel happy, and not in a way that's like, I love myself, but in a way that's like, I love my life.
Yes.
I love myself in my life, and I mean, God only knows. I would love to wake up and be like, I love myself. I still haven't achieved that kind of that confidence that I really desire. And I'm sure deep down I do have it, but I have this weird, this thorn in my side for appearance. And that's what, part of my eating disorder and part of my anxiety has to do with what I look like because of a traumatic experience. But I just want to be around things and eat things and look at things and watch things and have conversations that make me feel happy. That's why I created the Amarillo Project, because Amarillo in Spanish means yellow.
Yellow.
And it's this, to me, the color of the sun, the color of light, the color of, vibrance and radiance. And project meaning that, not that humans, that you're like a never ending self-improvement project, but that it's never ending. Like, you can keep adding in making something wonderful, which is your life, So I'm grateful to have the, I guess, issues that I have. I'm grateful for those traumatic experiences in a way, because they made me the warrior I am today. And at the same time, I'm grateful for conversations like this, where I feel seen and heard. I mean, I hate when people are like, I see you, I hear you, but I do. I love connecting with people. It's just, it's so essential right now
And that's
in general, but right now it's so essential.
I mean, that's why I do what I do. And it's interesting when I interviewed Stephanie J. Block, she said something really cool about, she was like, I know some people are like, you have to leave the work at the door. And she goes, she goes, for me personally, I disagree. She goes, I find I take the crap with me and it gives me a richer performance on stage. And it's funny. I mean, there are certain things where like, I have to, if I'm having a rough day or if something's not gelling, I will have to leave my house. It's very much like a pre-show call. Like if you're like, you know what, I need extra time, I'm going to get there an hour earlier. Like I will do the exact same if I know that I have to shed whatever's going on, out of, off my skin. Or I don't meditate all the time. I think that's a misconception that mediums do all the time. And I will probably do it about once a week. I'll always do like a quick one just to kind of see white light coming down on me before I do a reading. But I think I already kind of vibrate up here normally, so I don't really need to that often. But
Yeah.
I find that there are days where if I have my own hurt or pain that I bring into a reading, it's interesting because I always say that like gets like, and sometimes I might find like, oh, I was a magnet today and I'm able to use what I'm going through to channel this reading for this person that more deeply and go, okay, I'm going to take this so I can understand your pain as the empath,
Yeah.
but then I'm going to go, what do they want to, So, goodness, this is nice. Like you said, I feel seen today. Like, I know not to be like, I see you, I hear, but, could I ask you, when you started talking about the Amarillo, where did that come from? Like, where did you get the idea to, because I started following it and I saw that you wanted to talk about the normalization of the good, the bad, and the ugly. And at what point did you like, I think I need to do this for others and for myself?
I think just because I was I was at this point in the quarantine where my partner had taken up something that is his business, and it's been so beautiful to watch that flourish and watch him just kind of like spread his wings at home and be happy. And I was like, what is something that makes me happy? And it's like talking about this shit. This makes me really happy. Talking to my friends and having a cocktail and talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly. And just, I tried to create this motto, which for our video project, which is creating a self and powerful self-affirmation through cultivating conversation. And I love that because when I find people that I want to have a conversation with that I love their energy, it makes me buzzy. It makes me feel like
Yes,
after
yes,
that
yes.
for like days. And I'm like, we should always have this space where we can feel like this. It's almost like a healing pick me up, like a tonic. And tonic ironic because I love gin, but I just loved it. And also like just talk, it was an excuse to call my friends and have an hour-long chat
Yeah.
with them. And I don't know, it was perfect timing. And I'm grateful in my career to have opened the conversation longer than I thought I did about mental health. I mean, I was talking about this stuff in interviews when I started in Miss Saigon, and I remember how everyone was trying to be like hush hush, especially in England. They were like, we don't talk about this here, like it's not, be grateful for your job, and it was funny because I remember I was like, it was always in there in me to talk about this because that's how we
Yes.
felt. And I watched other people and I was like, I'm not trying to say I know better than you, but I think you're not okay.
Yeah.
So if you're ready to have a friend, I'm always here. Not that I always say this to them, but I would just observe that other people were having same in their behavior and in their speech, like same things that I was thinking. I was like, why am I so much louder than everyone else um, in my struggle? So yeah, I'm grateful to have had that thing where everyone's like, if anyone's going to talk about mental health, Eva, which is great. I'm grateful that I've had that impact on the community. So I thought might as well make it into a thing that makes me happy.
And it's so neat to see these Broadway leading ladies that are now talking about mental health and addressing it. Do you find that when I really click well with somebody, my crown chakra will tingle? And like when I read Tim of Hadestown, if you're listening at home, the minute I hung up, like that was I just felt so intellectually like seen and stimulated.
Stimulated.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, and that was my mom, when my mom was like, that was my favorite one. She's like, just the way you guys spoke together. And I feel like it's others notice that too, and it's a magical thing.
It is a magical thing. I also love Tim. Tim and I have this great relationship where I love when I can shoot the shit with someone, because my natural humor is very dry, very sarcastic, always joking. And I love when I can just sit and look at somebody and say, you're an ugly bitch. And he knows that what I'm saying is, I love you so much. And I loved him. And I also love, with his performers puzzle thing that he's created, it's nice to see so many people that I know are like, pretty much everyone has like made a spiritual baby in a project, or like
Yes.
a thing, an organization. It's so nice to see.
So anything that you feel comfortable sharing about your reading with our folks at home?
Yeah, of course. I was very nervous.
Really?
I was very nervous because I thought I was going to do something wrong. I remember thinking the night before, like when you said, like, light a candle and just ask if they would just meet you there, the people that you're thinking of. And I remember being like, like, what if I do this wrong? What if they don't hear me?
No.
Which is funny because I knew that it was going to be fine. I was just nervous because I had never had a reading before, ever. And I just kept hearing my mom's voice in my head, who's just always so skeptical of anything that's not structured religion. Sorry, but I
Sure.
I love you, but it's true. And I was just like, I hope that I guess my biggest fear was like, I hope that I'm readable. Because you never, like you never want to go into a store. Like I had the same fear of like going to a store and being like, do you have this size? And they'd be like, no. Do you know? You're like, we do not have that size, or we don't think that's going to look good on you. Like that fear of like
Yes.
being excited and getting shut down. So I was very scared, but it was incredible. And it blew my mind, to be honest. And to have like someone like you being so warm and so friendly and so just calm, cool, and confident, I was like, wow. But also like being able to see you and at work, like it was very interesting because we had never spoken, we had
No.
never talked, met, and everything that you said, I was like, wait, what? Are you serious? And it just kind of blew my mind. I mean, I never thought that I would be speaking to the Charlie or especially with what you shared about the baby and
Yeah.
everything. I was like, I can't believe that. That's so beautiful, like hauntingly beautiful. And I've thought about that a lot since you said that, of the fact that they're okay. And when I told my mom that, she was like, wow. And she just shut up for the first time in 25 years that I've known her. She just shut
Wow.
up. She stopped talking. She was like, huh, that's interesting. And I was like, yeah, let that soak in. That's nice, huh? So it was so interesting. And also what you said about, it was also the first time I felt like I had a clear connection with whoever was looking out for me, including my guardian angels and my spirit guides and everything. And the first time I felt like a pat on the back, like you're going in the right direction. Like that's the first time in my life that I felt like it was like, you're doing great. You don't need to worry about anything. You're on the right path. Absolutely no doubt about it. So that was very powerful, very powerful.
I always start off with a pat on the back too, because spoiler alert, that's something that I choose to do as a person because it puts the client at ease. No one wants to start off with like, oh, you've got a lot to fix. Like recently I heard a medium deliver something. And it's all about delivery too. This girl had wanted to know, was she going to have children? And I kept hearing the answer was yes. But the way I heard the medium answer, they were like, yeah, but there's a lot of things you need to fix first before you try to have kids. And I'm like,
Oh, wow.
what the frig are you doing? And like, so it's just, you have to know how to talk. I mean, rather you might, and I think that's so much of mediumship for me. Yes. I mean, it's part connecting with them, but you also have to know how to talk to people. So rather I would have been like, that's so exciting. Like, but I feel like there's two really exciting hurdles or projects that you want to work on before you start a family. Do you connect with this? And you don't word it the first way. And that's why mediums, I think, sometimes get a bad rep, because there comes a point where you're like, you have to go, okay, like you're talking with a stranger. You don't know them. You want this to be a positive experience. You always want them to leave there feeling better about their situation than they currently do. And yours was fascinating because I call yours if I were to if each reading was like a chapter of like a book or something, I would call yours the empty barrels reading, because for me, I'm sitting with you. I'm like this and I'm like, all right, who wants to come through? Who wants to come through? And I shit you not, I see like the tumbleweed blow by and I'm like,
Yeah.
so that's always my symbol for there's not many people. And then I kept looking in barrels, and the barrels were empty, meaning again, and I remember I was like, I think this one is a great. And then it's funny, when I was meditating, I'm pointing behind me because there's, it's very like a dressing room. I have a couch here with like a pillow that I hide under there. So if I needed to take a nap, I can. Then we have a bar over there. So, but anyway,
that sounds divine.
We've got it stocked. So, I kept hearing uncle, 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 uncle. So, and I always love to break this down for folks at home that listen too, because they're like, how does it work? Who comes through first? Let's start there. I have no control over who comes through and why. I always say the folks that come through, usually the order, it can either be just how I intuit it, or this person's coming through because you might not have lost many people, or they're coming through because they were super important to you, or they're the one that feels the most educated on the topic that you want to talk about. And that's why they're going to give you the advice. So when I kept hearing uncle, and then the minute I was so excited, because when you said it in Spanish, I was like, I know Spanish. I was like, that's uncle. And I was like, I have uncle written down. So I was like so excited. And then just to hear you like a half hour ago talk about when you were in London, then I didn't know that, you know, there were some ugly experiences there. I distinctly remember telling you that I was like, your uncle was with you in London in particular to kind of help support you. And I didn't know what I was saying. He just was like, say it as is. So just to hear you validate that now is so neat.
Yeah, that's so cool. That's so cool. It blows my mind.
Well, and the other thing, and I know we can't really talk about, but it's funny because I was like, I think, and if we can't say this, we can't, you just let me know and I'll cut it out. But I was like, I see 2 jobs coming for you like really soon. And you're like, well, there's the one. And I'm like, maybe the other one's for my partner. And I'm like, no, it's for you. And then today we had to start a half hour later because you're like, I have to go do a job and I have to get a COVID test. And I replied back and then I was like, oh wait, PS, it's like told you.
Yeah, I genuinely was, I just remember the mindset I was in when I did that, because I was like, I haven't been getting jobs. I'm doing this one job, but you know, I want jobs. I don't want just one job. I want jobs.
Yeah.
And I knew, you know, sometimes, you know, when you're dating, you know, another actor as a performer yourself, you know, it's hard to not suffer in comparison, because you're like, I want to have the same amount of projects that they have, because I think that's success. But then it's also like, that's my ego talking, which lately I've been having to look at more and go, you need to not drive as much. You're drunk, go home. You know? So seriously, I was like, why you speak a lot more than I thought you did. You need to shut the hell up. So that was the whole ego thing, in my opinion, being like, I've been working nonstop for 7.5 years. And then also the insecurity thing of like, I don't deserve a job. Like, you know, I don't deserve a new opportunity.
Are your auditions primarily on Zoom right now? Like when you're, and then how do you connect digitally? Is it harder? Is it easier?
I actually I don't prefer it, but the way that I've gotten the 2 jobs I've gotten have to do with me meeting the people in charge. If I have to audition with material, like my second one I auditioned with material, but I had a chat with them first, because look, this is the only egotistical thing I'll say. I'm very fucking funny. I know how funny I am. I'm very funny. I'm the funniest person I know. And so I'm glad that I can make laughs, and I'm glad I can make people laugh and myself laugh, because I feel like it always makes an experience a lot more enjoyable. So I feel like I really, you know, throw the humorous worm out there and I reel these motherfuckers in to give me the job, because I'm very funny. So thankfully, we still have those Zoom setups where I can meet the director and have a conversation with the director. And if they think I'm right for the project based off our vibe, then it's a go. So the 2 projects I have upcoming are genuinely, and the one I'm doing at the moment, have to do with me meeting the person. And then after we got a good vibe with each other, they sent me some material, sent it back. And it was like, I don't know, it was like the energy from that conversation manifested the job itself. And I'm grateful for that. I will say I'm a horrible auditioner. If I have to go in and do a normal audition, I'm dreadful at them. I think it's funny because I have a lot of stories, but I know I have a lot of work to do. Even self-tapes, horrible at them. Horrible, horrid. I have to, whenever I do a self-tape, you can be rest assured that I'm at least 2 whiskeys in. I can't do it sober.
And then see, and for just the theater folks watching at home that are in college and pursuing this, like listen and learn right now. You know, we have Eva here admitting she's not perfect with her auditions or self tapes.
this is not good advice, I don't think, but I think true authenticity weeds out the people that you wouldn't want to work with.
Yes.
Because I genuinely think that it's kind of the thing of like what you attract. Like, what's the thing? Like, what
Basically, what you give off, you attract. Like,
you attract. Yeah, yeah, that's what I was trying. I was like, what do you give it? But I do think that because if I'm able to shoot the shit with someone, but show them that I'm professional in my work, that's the perfect vibe. That's what I want to work with. I don't want to work with somebody who, you know, if I try to make a joke, they're like, how dare you? I don't work with someone like that. Like, you know, and I know maybe some people on my team might disagree, because I do say no a lot because I'm quick. My intuition's very strong. I know what I want to do. And I also know if my ego's like, we don't want to do that. We're too good for that, which is very rare. But sometimes for like, you know, every once in a while a Disney thing comes in and I'm like, no. But I have such a clear conversation with myself at all times that this particular person on my team might not understand. So it's hard for me to say no all the time. At the same time, it's very difficult for me to say yes to something that I'm not passionate about.
sure.
Because I'm 100% or nothing in a project. I work my butt hole off in a job that I'm doing, because that's what this project deserves. I want to give a million percent
Yes.
energy, because that'll give me something, not just because I'll receive something, but because that's what I love to do. So I say yes to very few things. And this is also good advice. I don't say yes to everything. I say yes to the things that genuinely excite me and I know is going to challenge me and make me very happy. It's hard to give that advice, of course, when we're in the middle of the pandemic, but even then, because burnout's real. And I experience that even now, like with doing stuff. And sometimes I look at my Google Docs and I'm like, what? Like, I'm more busy now and I don't actually have like a steady job. How is this possible?
I know this month was terrifying to me because it was the first month that I've essentially, I guess it's a weird word, that I've ever sold out, so to speak. Like
Oh,
I'm now,
wow.
so if you're watching at home, I booked, so I'm now booked into the end of April, but I've known about this since like mid-February. So
Wow.
it's crazy. And there's every morning.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Now I'm like, oh, thank you. But I was terrified because I'm like, oh gosh, like there's a lot of people and like it's, but then I have to keep going like, okay, like ultimately, like this is what you wanted. You wanted to grow your business. You wanted to share your love of mediumship with others. And now you have this chance. And now that I take the days off in between, and like I said, when I don't talk about it, I'm like, we're not talking about spirit today. We're talking
Yeah.
about our dogs. We're talking about, how was your day? To my husband, like, he's this incredible photographer. And I'm like, show me your work today. Like we balance,
Mm,
and,
yeah.
um,
That's
and I guess to
beautiful.
piggyback, I love the Zoom readings because it forces you, like, look right now, like if this were folks at home, if you're a practicing medium or if you're a skeptic, I can't see anything. If I'm reading
Yeah.
somebody, I can't see if they're married. I can't, and I always say go into a reading with like nothing on the shirt, like no graphic shirt. I'm like, because we are human. I mean, our own subjectivity comes into play. So I don't want to see a shirt that, like let's say, I'm not even gonna, like, let's say you have a shirt that pretty, gives me a statement about, I don't want to know that. I don't want to know who you are by your t-shirt, by your,
Yeah.
and I just shared it recently on social media when I did the reading for somebody a couple of years ago. Sometimes if we're tired or we're like, I don't know, I'm having a hard time focusing. I was reading this woman in front of me in person and I'm like looking and, I'm like this and I'm taking notes. And then I see out of the corner of my eye, her toenail, her nail polish color was horrible. It was like this
Yeah,
neon,
yeah.
but I remember I'm trying to
No.
channel like her father and I'm like, this does not go well with your shoes. And then all of a sudden you got it. Like my brain starts like starting to giggle and I'm like, no, 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 no. And like, it's a very delicate dance where I'm like, oh, I got to keep dad here. But I'm like, these are really ugly toenail color polish. So I love Zoom because I can't see any of that.
See
And it
that. Yeah.
keeps us very, even phone ones are fun because if you can't see anyone, you have no way of letting your own subjectivity come in. So it's
True. That's very true.
it's exciting. If you were a ghost, yeah, if you were stuck as a ghost in a theater for all of eternity and you could only watch one musical over and over and over, what would it be?
Les Mis.
My Miss. No one's picked that yet.
It's my favorite. It was my favorite. Being in it was my favorite.
No one's picked that yet. Good choice.
Yeah, I think it's a good choice. Because I
Um,
know it so well. I tell Reeve this, I say, I'd love to be and we call them ghosts. We're just, our humor is stooped to an all-time low. Ghost makes us laugh. The word ghosts, ghost. I don't know. It's so stupid. But I say, I would love to be a ghost, and then I could do this thing. We just come up with all these different scenarios on how we would haunt people in ways that are just so dumb and funny. But anyway, I would haunt the crap out of Les Mis. I think that'd be great.
There you go. If there's any character that you've played in the past or present that you think would benefit the most from seeing a medium.
Oh my God, Eurydice. Absolutely.
Could you imagine?
I feel like if she got read by a medium, she would sit down and be like, all right, well, I don't believe in this stuff, so let's see it. And then the medium would touch her hand and it would burn, and it would be like, you're a demigod. And she's like, hey.
She's like, you really are.
I think that'd be so funny. That'd be great.
If you could go back and originate a character on Broadway that was made famous, that might have been like a star-making turn for another actress at the time. If you could swap with them, what would it be?
Ooh. Originate. That's a great question. For some reason, the first thing comes to mind, and I'm not even passionate about this, but Reno Sweeney. I don't even know why I'm excited about that. But honestly, probably Millie Dillon.
Now, on the flip side, if you could offer Eurydice to, like, let's say that there was no age restriction on Eurydice, which there's nothing that says that there is, but if you could, if there was like a big Broadway diva that you could be like, you know what, I want this to be your role, who would you pick?
Eurydice. I'm trying to think of the music, and
I know.
I mean, just for laughs, I'd love to hear Patti LuPone try to sing soft. I'm joking. I was joking.
Could you imagine Patti singing Flowers?
It would be epic. She probably wouldn't want to sit down. She probably want to stand up.
She would.
And then she maybe have a section where she, is putting her hands up, and then all of a sudden she turns around and it's just spells Patty and big massive lights like in Gypsy. What can you do? That'd be great. Yes. I don't know. Patty makes me laugh. Thinking about Patty makes me laugh. But also, I don't think she would like the revolve. I think she'd be like, they're going too fast. I think she'd be like, I won't do this. The singing of her.
Stop moving the platform. Stop. Stop. You heard the stage manager. Who do you think you are? And that thing would stop. If she said stop, the turntable would stop.
In the second it leaves her mouth, the word stop. I want to hear Audra sing Eurydice. I mean, we'd have to change the keys, but just in like concert version, I'd be like, what? That'd be great. Her voice is just disgusting.
Final question on a different note. Many, many, many years from now, when we're all not here, how would you want people to look back and remember Eva?
I don't know. I've never thought about that. I think cheesy line, but wonderful human. Because I don't know. I kind of want to, knowing me, I just want to put a tombstone on my tombstone. I just want it to be a joke. I've joked to Reeve, and I've said on my tombstone, it'll say, Eva Noblezada, loving wife, mother, friend, and goofball. Reeve Carney should have been nominated for a Tony in 2019. I told him that's going to be on my tombstone. So, but I don't know. I think I want people to remember me by opening up the conversation about mental health in the musical theater industry. I hope that's, and also I hope that the rest of my life I'm able to, I know I will, but I'm excited to see what it is. Just accomplish many other things that are big and beautiful and bountiful and are passed down from generation to generation. And I hope I can make the revolutionaries of the past proud, I guess, in all aspects of that. But I don't know. I want people to remember me and go, oh, she was great. I don't know. Something that has to do with laughter.
You are beautiful. You are a gift. Oh gosh. Yes, I know they will remember you. And I always say when we pass away, we go into something called life review. I stand with you. Every Tony Award voter in 2019, when they go through life review, will be like, oh yeah, why didn't we nominate Reeve for the Tony? And I stand by that statement. And Reeves, gosh, I was fortunate enough to see all of you when the day after the show opened. I bought tickets because I was like, it's going to get really expensive and I can't afford this. I was like, I'm a poor teacher. And It's branded up here forever. I cannot wait when Broadway reopens to rush and go see the three, all of you. But I mean, gosh, just to go cheer you guys on and soak up
It's
that
going to be
story.
so emotional. I don't know how we're going to get through. I mean, Reeve and I can't even get through singing All I've Ever Known together anymore because it's just, we just start crying. At least I could, we went singing and I was like, we're about to both cry. So let's just pull this back a little bit. Not because we missed it. Well, because we missed the show and also because it means something to us now differently than didn't show context, but it's going to be marvelous when we're able to do that.
It's going to be, because Hadestown, and I think of like Moulin Rouge, these shows about artistry and this idea of community and why do we create and going along on a journey for something, I think is going to resonate more deeply than ever. So I want to thank you. If you could have told me a year ago that we would be sitting shooting the shit, talking about a reading that I gave you, I never would have believed it. So I cannot thank you enough for being my guest today. If you're folks at home listening or watching, please go check out the Amarillo Project. It's beautiful. Eva goes live every so often, and I've watched it. It is the mental detox that I need. And I will put up her socials, her information, some of my favorite clips of her just belting her face off and just showing what a light she is. So thank you so much for being here tonight. Be well. Good luck with your 2 projects and many, 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 many more after that, because I know they're coming. And
thank you seriously. Thank you so much for inviting me on to this and for the reading and just for being now just honestly a very bountiful and radiant white light presence now in my human experience. I really, really appreciate you.
The honor is mine. So thank you. And the feeling is mutual. So be well, everyone at home. Thank you for watching season 1 of Stage Door Medium, and we're going to take a little break. We've got some exciting things coming up for season 2, and I will see you soon. Bye, everyone. Bye, Eva.
Bye.